per LMS and CHS that you requested?
You mean the one Brian sent out?
Did he send it to you?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't know he forwarded it to you, so I just sent it to you too.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the May 22nd Litchfield Budget Committee meeting. Call the meeting to order, and we'll start tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We do have two members that are not here this evening. Mr. Taylor is traveling for work, and Ms. Douglas had a family obligation this evening. No remote participation. Any review or additions to tonight's agenda? Okay, I am going to do, Mr. Taylor sent correspondence, so I'm going to do correspondence, and then we will go into any public input. Correspondence summary since our last meeting on April 24th. On April 24th, Andrew Cutter sent a copy of the solar power purchase agreement from January 2023, as well as the contract amendment from December 2023. On April 25th, Chair Sun sent the agenda for the May 22nd meeting. On April 27th, Matthew Sullivan sent the meeting minutes for the April 24th meeting. On April 28th, Kim Kleiner sent the invite for the dedication of war pedestals. On April 29th, Kim Kleiner sent a summary of the actions taken at the Board of Selectmen meeting on April 28th. On May 1st, Kim Kleiner sent the town newsletter. On May 2nd, Heather Sneman sent the May 2nd, 2025 town budget report. On May 19th, Heather Sneman sent the May 19th, 2025 town budget report along with the special fund balances and the budgeted reviews for April. On May 22nd, Chair Sun sent the May 21st school BA report and an initial list of encumbrances. And then also on May 22nd, Ron Oblinus emailed the Budget Committee sharing several files, including school average class size and master plan documents, sharing his intent to speak to those during public comment of the 5/22/25 meeting. Mr. Sun responded to Mr. Oblinus, thanking him for his email and informing him that staffing and class sizes for the schools are not in the purview of the Budget Committee and those concerns should be brought to the school board. That is our correspondence since our last meeting. And with that, I'll open it up for public input. State your name and address, sir.
Excuse me if I have to get my glasses out here. Good evening. Ron Oblinus, 15 Riverview Circle. What I want to talk about is simply just making some observations that I trust that the Budget Committee will be being proactive as far as setting some expectations ahead of the budgeting process. As a for instance, last year, in my opinion, you were simply reactive to budgets that came before you without setting some, at least some guidelines within the group as what you would expect as appropriate increases. As a for instance, the operating budget that went forth for the school was about 6.2% higher than the previous year. When added in the raises were added, the operating budget from one year to this last year was nearly 10%. Ironically, you had lots to say and challenge the town at 4% increase, but you had no real difficulty with approving a budget, in my mind, for the school board that was wildly over what it should have been. I'm asking you to start to think what should be appropriate percentages that should be targeted for the school board as they prepare their budget before it's even brought to you, instead of reacting to it as they come in, and then it's difficult for you to challenge. As for instance, in specific, I'd like to note that, as I brought up, in fact, Mr. Hayes, who's no longer in the committee, actually highlighted an issue with the LSSA contract last year, noting that there were steps already built into the contract that, when added to the proposed increases, actually resulted in a very substantial increase in the pay for hourly increases. That was not really fully vetted here. And when I brought it to the school board, they wanted to oppose that. However, at the very end, they finally did admit, instead of about a 12% raise over 3 years, the net effect was closer to 23%. The reason I bring that up is that same situation will occur with the upcoming LSA contract, the teacher's contract. There are steps in the existing contract that average about 3%. Some are a little lower, some are closer to 4%. There is also, and that's based on just simply year of service. There's also what I'll call those vertical increases. In that contract, there's also what I call horizontal increases. And that results in teachers getting further accreditations, which is great. And I applaud that. But that also adds to the overall increases of teachers. So I challenge you, when you're looking at the budgets that come before you, you need to do some deep diving into the actual results and what the context of what's being proposed results in. In my opinion, with the steps remaining the way they are, the recommended increases for salaries for teachers should be 0. That's what I would recommend, given the situation where we are with the rate of inflation and the rest of the budgets that have just gone out of control. So that's what I'm here to suggest. You need to set expectations ahead of time. You need to talk among yourselves as to what you think would be appropriate. Do you think 6%, 7%, 8% is okay for the school part? Or should it be closer to 4%, like the town has to live with? The reason being is, come December, you need to be prepared for a shock of your lifetime when the people actually get this year's December tax bill that will likely go up 30 to 40%. There will be outrage, and it will be difficult. And to that end, I just want to highlight 2 things to that point. You need to actually begin to challenge the staffing levels within the school system. It is within your purview to ask whether the school board does have teacher averages in accordance with their stated policies. I sent you a document, and you don't want to get into details, but I'll just tell you what it says. It says that the average staffing, and I did this based upon the enrollment figures and making allowances for teachers only teaching 6 out of 7 periods.
And I want to stop you there, Mr. Blaine, because I don't want us to get into the specifics of the policies. That's not the purview of the budget.
All right, I won't. But my calculations suggest that GMS is staffed correctly, LMS has about 7 teachers over, and Campbell has 9 teachers over. That's only for the regular. It does not look at the special needs. And I appreciate what I received this afternoon, and the reason I bring this up is it will be helpful for you to look at and understand and investigate what I'm suggesting you need to actually ask questions about. What that was, and I appreciate Andrew and Mr. O'Connell, the superintendent, sending it. It was a utilization matrix for LMS and Campbell High School. And it identifies for every class, for every classroom that's available, and I've only looked over it a few minutes, but it does provide what I asked for, and that is the utilization of the existing classrooms, what's in there for classes, and the number of students per class. You'll find that what I just stated really does seem to be the case when you examine those figures. So all I'm saying is that this board needs to start looking at things ahead of time and start preparing and giving some internal expectations of what you would feel would be appropriate increases to both the town and the school board in advance. And if you don't do that, I don't believe you're doing your job.
Thank you, Mr. Oblings. And I do encourage you to attend the next school board meeting and share a lot of the stuff that you sent to us today with them as well.
I will. And I simply ask, I believe, quite truthfully, And just to reiterate, what I did actually send you is some information on the planning documents that are prepared in the master plan for the town. You, as a budget committee, need to know what's in those, because it has very significant information. And particularly, if you listen to the Board of Selectmen meeting, which I presented recently, you'll understand why, where I use those documents to identify that our planning documents and impact statements say that we're at full staffing level, and the police station that was proposed was too big for our staffing levels. The reason I bring this up is I shouldn't be the only one that's going and find these things and then bring them up. That's the job of these committees, the school board, the budget committee, and the town. And if I have to come in and be the one that brings them up, then I don't think you guys are doing your job. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Any other public input this evening? Seeing none,
Can I comment on some of that?
you may.
I think it's to think that we're 9 teachers over at CHS is preposterous. You obviously don't have students at CHS. If you did, you know it's almost impossible to get any of the classes you want. I don't know. I speak to other people here.
We're not going to go back and
Point of
forth.
order, if he's talking to me.
No,
I'm
he's
gonna
not.
be-
He is
Make a
not.
statement just like
He
you
is
made a
not.
statement.
He's not talking to you. He's not talking to you. He asked to respond.
Don't
He's-
look over my direction.
He, Mr. Oblinus.
Having had 2 kids that just went through CHS, one graduated 2 years ago, one is graduating this year, it's almost impossible to get any class you want because they don't have enough teachers. Just this past year, my son tried to sign up for AP Computer Science, Honors Pre-Calculus, and AP Spanish 5, and couldn't get them because they're all taught at the same time, because there's not enough teachers to actually teach those classes. It's not as simple as saying, okay, we have 400 kids divided by 20 kids per class, and we need X amount of teachers. There's requirements around every student needs to take 4 years of English, every student needs to take 3 years of math, probably 4 years if they're going to college and stuff like that. They need foreign languages, they need at least 2 classes of computer science, 2 classes of gym. And to try and fit all that into a schedule that actually the kids can go to, you're not going to have classes with 20 kids each. You're going to unfortunately have classrooms that might have 10 kids in it, and it's unfortunate, but that's just how it is when it comes to scheduling a school of our size, unfortunately. So to think that we're actually that overstaffed, could you argue maybe there's 1 or 2? Perhaps. 9 is preposterous in my opinion.
Thank you. I have not, in full transparency, I didn't fully read the documents yet that Mr. Oblina shared before this evening. Having worked in school systems for almost 25 years, I agree with a lot of what you're saying, Derek, because I think to take a round number of 400 divided by this and say this is the number of teachers, I taught in very specialized classes, and a lot of those class sizes were not the average 23 to 25 students that you would see in English or math, versus I might have three sections running at the same time with 4, 5, and 7 kids that were upper level courses. And so a lot of those things are taken into consideration when you look at a master schedule and when you look at staffing as well. And I think I know the school board has policies on these, and I again encourage Mr. Oblinus to share his concerns with the school board and for the school and the staff and the superintendent to take those into considerations as they're going into their budgeting process.
As we've opened up comments, if I may,
You may.
one of the considerations as we are in an LEA contract year, certainly the board needs to consider is what is competitive amongst our peer cohorts, right, in surrounding towns. And we need to operate as a district, right? And we need to remain competitive with a salary that is competing with our district and our neighboring peers and peer cohorts. And that is something we look at with every cohort and every opportunity these LEA contracts come up. I mean, Mr. Barca, Mr. Borg, you know that firsthand. So the fact that it was mentioned that there's a 2% or a step plus, a salary increase, and that we should do away with the salary increase altogether, I want the budget committee to think about what that would do to our district and really what the impact of that decision would be, right? Because if we're saying we're no longer going to offer a contractual increase on top of a step, what we're saying as a district is we're no longer competing with our peer cohorts. And that means we will lose staff. There's no question about that. We will not be able to operate our buildings. Period. We will lose our teachers and our staff if that were to occur. End of story. Thank you.
Thank you.
All that said, obviously the school budget is expanding, so I would certainly encourage the school board to try and be creative. I don't think taking Mike, I forgot my charger. Thanks, Dave. I don't think taking teachers out of being in front of students is the right answer. I think we get creative. I mean, I personally look at the admin layer maybe.
There's always
need an
opportunity to
AD
look
that's not
at.
teaching classes.
There's always opportunity to look at and refine. Certainly, we are in a stable and declining enrollment environment, right? We all know that. That's been consistent. The administration has done that. We have seen, even this past year, changes in staffing that will continue to happen. The budget that was given to the new administration was the previous administration's budget,
100%.
right? They've said that. There will be changes to that budget and continued changes as they get into it over the next year, so stay tuned. But yes, absolutely, there are opportunities, and we'll continue to look at that.
And I think all that being said, and I agree with the vast majority of what you guys are saying, I do think one thing that Mr. Oblina said that's true is I think we have to really sharpen our pencils on the school and the town side, because one thing I personally don't want to see is both operating budgets fail again. And I think none of us want to see that. And so I think the point of sharpening our pencils, doing our work, and presenting a responsible budget that it both meets the needs of the school and the town and is responsible to the taxpayer is something we have to do a better job of, because none of us wants either town or school to be in default. So, any other comments, the committee?
I have one. It's not the responsibility, and it was said we should tell the school and we should tell the town what we want for a budget. That's not our responsibility. The town's responsibility is to bring in, and even then, they don't, when it's under the tax cap. It's our job to work on with the town to get it under the tax cap. But as far as the school, we don't dictate to the school, you bring in a budget that's 12% less than next year. It's not our responsibility.
So, just to say, to correct something, it's not the town's responsibility to bring the budget under the tax cap. That's the
No,
budget.
and I corrected myself.
The town's responsibility is to bring forward a fiscally sound budget that will operate the town at the levels we're at and to accommodate what our growth is, right?
We are legally obligated
You
to get
folks
it.
are, unfortunately, we are now obligated to do that, and it's tough. It's a conflict for us too. We wanna keep under that, but our the growth of the budget, due to costs out, foreseeing costs from our perspective, this increases have gotten out of control. I mean, we're still seeing jumps of 15%, 10%, 15% in services. And it seems like it's not getting any cheaper.
No, it's not getting any easier to get it there either.
No, it's not.
Last couple of years has been difficult.
Yeah, it's been very difficult.
Any other committee member comments? Okay. Next on the agenda is review and acceptance of minutes. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes from April 24th?
Make a motion to accept.
A motion from Mr. Burke. Second from Mr. Brunel. Discussion? Seeing none. We do not have to roll call tonight. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries 7-0-0. Next on the agenda, town business. Mr. Brunel.
Yeah, just a few updates, I guess. At the last board meeting, they did sign off on the first issue of the tax warrant. So everybody probably received their tax bill for the first half of the year. We did appoint a new CIP member, Mr. Parker, who's gonna join the committee for the next 3 years as a participant in this, as a resident member of CIP, citizen resident. Town budget, still concerns, obviously, we still see a lot of overruns we're running into defaults, so we are seeing some shortcomings. We're still projecting we're gonna be okay, but things go down the year, it gets a little tougher and it'll get a little tighter, we'll have to figure out ways to conserve. So we're gonna continue watching our expenses. I think I talked about last time, Senate Bill 297, which was the health trust reserves. That's actually making some good progress. They actually made a decision, there was an amendment to move all that underneath the insurance department, which kind of removed some of the concerns from like health trust leaving the state and all that. So that's a good thing for all of us. We don't perceive any large increases if it goes that route, and hopefully it sticks that way. Another bill, which is House Bill 475, that's come up to our attention of late, is the modification of how we calculate the default budget. This warrant.
Is that RSA?
It's House Bill 475, and it's how the default budgets are calculated for SB2 towns. But basically, some of the synopsis is that positions that are left vacant for over a year will get removed out of the budget and will not be able to be put in the default. So if you have unfilled positions, you lose that funding in the default.
Even if you can't find a suitable person?
It also forbids default budgets to include salaries or benefits increases made from previous budgets, which I think we do that today. I think we don't always get it that way. And then requires the default budget to exclude any kind of fund transfers, one-time expenditures, and those kind of things. So what we used to was always a bottom line budget. They were actually removing that buffer to get us, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt how the default's calculated. The safety net, there's always been a buffer. We're still, like, in that case of the town, we're still short of $100,000. But with the movements, we're able to at least get 60 of it back and be able to keep on maintaining without impacting services. But, so those are things we're watching. Other than that, everything else is going pretty well.
Question, back to the current default budget. I was referencing you said how are we tracking against that?
So, how are we tracking?
Just as far as, there was $127,000, like we've identified, I know Miss Kleiner had the spreadsheet there, but we feel confident with the things that were identified back in March as being able to make up that difference in that gap.
Yeah, we identified, I think it was 60,000, and it predominantly comes from unfilled positions in the police department.
Yep.
So, yeah, we're still looking okay there. Like I said, there's been line items, like propane was high over the last part of the winter. This weather's not helping. We're still heating buildings because they're still cold out. So things that we thought would reduce are not reducing. We consumed almost all of our salts. We had to refill the salt shed. We typically don't have to do that. So those are the type of things. Gas, fuel was up, but all the department heads are aware of it. We're all tracking our budgets, specifically for everybody. We understand what the bottom line looks like. And we also know where the shortfalls are, and department heads are giving up certain activities to give it to another department as they need it. So we're working very well together for that.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for Mr. Brunel this evening?
How's the police vehicle fleet holding up?
It's not holding up very well.
I saw 2 at Edwards the other day.
Yep. Yep. One's been Deadline. Two have been at Edwards. They're running the two newer ones very heavily right now, which always impacts it long term. The new vehicle is here, but it's still waiting for parts to come in to get it outfitted. We don't expect it to go online for another 3 months.
That reminded me that, correct me, I heard there was, with the incident with the gentleman that was caught at Romano's.
Yeah.
Was there damage to our cruiser?
No.
Okay.
So the gentleman tried to run a few folks off the road. He did hit one of our vehicles, but luckily enough the tire was cut and he hit the wheel, and we hurt his car. We didn't hurt our car. So, and that ended up being one of the admin cars. It wasn't even a patrol car at the time. So, but he did try to take a couple of cruisers off the road, and they were able to veer away. So, and obviously none of our officers were hurt. Right? It was a fun day.
Any
Very active.
Any other questions for Mr. Brunel this evening?
It looks like that bill you mentioned, it already passed the House.
Yes, we just found out
All
about
of
it
our
today.
representatives voted in favor of it too.
I
so
know.
We can thank them.
Thank you for a lot of things.
Yeah, we learned about it I think we learned about it last week. We started to put together a letter, and also we looked at it today and it was passed. So again, I don't know, like I said, I don't know how it's gonna hurt us. On the surface, it feels like it takes away the buffers that we have in the default. which isn't all that great in some most cases, right? We just happen to be lucky this year, we have two filled positions.
So it really eliminates unfilled positions?
After 1 year.
After 1 year.
Yeah,
The
and
wording on it, reading it, it's
Yeah.
weird how they worded it.
Yeah, I was reading it too. That italicized
Yeah.
part is, yeah.
Yeah, in our case, we have, and this is what bothers me too, is that both those positions were funded by warrant, action of the
Just couldn't
residents.
fill 'em, yeah.
We just haven't been able to fill them yet, right? So it doesn't necessarily move it from the budget. We come back and it's there, but now we're trying to go back from a default line to put it all back in again, right?
It does.
Whenever we get a default, we kind of go back to zero and try to rebuild it out again.
It does say eliminated positions shall not include vacant positions under recruitment or positions redefined in the proposed operating budget as determined by the governing body unless provisions of RSA 4014B are adopted.
So if it's in your budget, aren't you trying to recruit for those
Right,
positions?
that's
We
what
are
I would.
trying to recruit, but the 1 year mark, I think what we're getting back, it's, people are concerned the wording is not specific, and one legal might say no, and another one might say yes, so.
Just be more fighting over what the RSA actually says.
And it'll get hashed out at some point in time.
More mud.
Okay.
But I'm just reading the news, so.
Anything else for Mr. Brunel? All right, school, Mr. Cutter.
I have no updates for you. No. So look, we're getting to the end of our school year, end of June. We're a few weeks away from graduation. Graduation's June 12th. If you tuned into last night's school board meeting, we talked a little bit about encumbrances. Ms. Douglas asked some questions. I tried to get those answers over promptly to the budget committee, so you had that for tonight. The board started preliminary talking about encumbrances last night. The very draft list was shared with the budget committee overnight. Again, emphasis on draft. We have asked the superintendent and administration to include prioritization for those encumbrances and what they're thinking. Obviously, the board is very focused on wants versus needs, focused on addressing the infrastructure issues at CHS and the items that were kind of identified in the on-site insight reports. There was conversation about the safety doors at GMS that were brought up. That was part of our conversation last night. So more to come, certainly. The actions for encumbrances are taken at our second meeting in June before we have to close the books at the end of June. And so that's kind of the key meeting to watch out for. So more to come, certainly as this progresses over the next 30 days or so. Any questions on that?
Were you looking for it? Did you
Oh,
find
no,
it?
he couldn't find it, he found it. Do you guys have a projected end of year balance right now, or?
So that's the question that Ms. Douglas was trying to get into as well. So I've been asking that question. That was not reported to us last night, so I don't have a number to present to the budget committee tonight. The two key dates that were reported to us are June 5th and June 12th. Those are the dates that are directly associated to key payroll dates. Some employees elect for balloon payments for the end of the year, and salary and benefit payouts happen on one of those two payroll dates, which can greatly fluctuate the end of year spend. So the administration's waiting for those two dates, right, before we have a good picture of what that looks like.
Yeah, that was the same. Yeah, that was the question Ms. Douglas asked as well.
What is budgeted, and this was the other question, what is budgeted from a revenue perspective to go back to the town is $200,000.
Yeah.
That's what we budget every year, so we'll see where we land.
Do you don't anticipate this encumbrance list getting any larger, right? Like this is a starting point.
I do anticipate it getting larger,
Okay.
actually. You'll note that row 20, repair, damage, soffit, south end of the building. There's a question mark there. We did go out to bid for RFQ on that. There were no responses to the RFQ. That will be likely a 5-figure fix. So that is in there. You'll also note row 17. This is CHS exterior. There's no dollar amount in that. That is an on-site insight report item where there's definitely maintenance and exterior cracks at CHS that need to be remediated. We have no idea what that will cost. And so our building maintenance team is going out to get some quotes for that as well.
And thank you for sharing that. You know, one of the things, and I'll share this. I don't think she would mind. Miss Douglas is, she had a comment related to the LMS study, and I think that is row
6.
6. Thank you. You know, acknowledging that, you know, this is work being considered by the FIC. It's likely to lead to a larger construction project. Asking, you know, whether that money should come from capital reserve or capital improvement versus encumbrance. And I think that's a fair question to ask.
I had actually asked if we even need to pay for this, right? I know there's local companies in town that do this type of work. I had asked to ask the question, right? I don't know what's involved in this, but I asked the administration to reach out to Mr. Brown, who has recently gone through something similar with this at the transfer station, at least for guidance, to ask the question. So, we'll see.
Questions for the school and Mr. Cutter this evening?
I have a question on one of the items, in the Gator golf cart. Didn't we just
Yes.
purchase a Gator?
Yeah, that was a conversation last night as well. So the Gator golf cart. So the Gator golf cart was purchased for facilities. We had a student from a neighboring district who had a significant injury in the fall time, and the Gator was not available because it was being used for facilities and had all sorts of facilities equipment in it, and it was not at the sports field. And as a result, that student had to be carried off the field by parents to a vehicle to be transferred out to an emergency room. This Gator and the ask for this is to be specifically used by the athletic department, to be available at the games in case of an emergency, to be able to transport the kids to wherever they need to go to get them off the field quickly.
Don't we still have two?
There is an old Gator that is at end of life, I believe.
So I thought the Gator was always there for athletic events.
It is now. And I think the issue is they're cleaning it out for that purpose, but it's used for facilities primarily, and taking all the stuff off to make it available for the games, and then putting all the facility stuff back on for use during the day.
Can I ask a question on the floor stripper? Didn't we have that in the budget this past year?
We did. So this was,
This is 2 of 3?
this is 2 of 3, and we pulled it out to lower the budget
From the default.
from the default,
Got it.
and that's why it's being considered for encumbrance.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Cutter this evening?
We're still paying for that robot to line the fields.
2 years.
Can we take that money and buy a Gator? And just have someone line the fields?
The
You can even do
robot,
it from the Gator.
I mean, the robot is still in this current year's budget, right?
We didn't procure it?
I'd have to see for next year. It's a good question. I don't know where that falls for next year.
Just curious. It's about
Yeah.
the cost of Gator, right? It was like 15,000, something like that a year, right?
Yeah, it's like 14 grand,
Yeah.
including the paint.
Including the bank.
That was the discussion, was it a more cost-effective way to do it once you added in the cost of the paint itself?
Right.
I gotta think we can manage the schedule with the Gator for facilities for sports, right? How often are we gonna be having
I
ball
don't understand
goes
what
out?
facilities need it for.
Right, at post 3 o'clock, right?
Yeah, I would assume most of that's during the day, right?
Yeah.
So
post 3 o'clock for
it
that.
sounds like it's the maintenance of taking the facilities gear off and making it ready for the sports.
Right.
We should be able to figure that
If
out
they
without
need to-
buying a new Gator.
The facilities need one, use the old one.
That's right, that's right. That to me is an easy fix with just some administrative, organization.
Anything else for the school this evening?
And I think just the update on this one, and I'm looking at the description, the cost for this is for a golf cart,
Yeah, I saw that.
not a Gator. The description says Gator, that was
Yeah.
the
No,
intention.
it says it over there.
Yeah, golf cart, Gator's 20,000 or something, like I said, yeah.
If you do get a golf cart, get an easy go. No, I'm Don't go for like, there's so many new kind out there, like bells and whistles, and you can't get them repaired.
All right. Next, we have member input, new business. We did have tonight, if you remember, last month, we had bylaws discussion, and so tonight we need to vote on the bylaws and approve them either as they currently stand or with any changes, because we do have to do this annually and get it over to Ms. Kleiner and the town. I will start the conversation this evening. If you don't have access to the document, probably the easiest way to grab it is to go to the portal. Thank you to Mr. LaPlante for getting this updated. If you go to budget.litchfieldnh.gov, and then over on the left-hand navigation side, there is a link that says LBC Documents, and then the bylaws are at the top of that page. I have one proposed change to the bylaws for this evening, and that is on page, sorry, lost my place. That is on page 5. So this is under section 5, responsibilities and duties of the budget committee. Capital letter D. And what I am, the current read of that, the current read of section 5D is committee members may serve on citizens or other subcommittees when appointed by majority of the committee. But I'm going to make a motion to amend section 5, letter D of our bylaws to now read: committee members may serve on citizens or other subcommittees when appointed by majority of the committee. Committee members shall not have voting rights on subcommittees that have a financial impact, including but not limited to capital improvement planning and school facilities improvement committee. Period. So that's a motion. Have a second for discussion?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Sun, second by Mr. Barca. Discussion. You know, we kind of hashed this out, I think, last week. You know, my take on this is, you know, I think to Ms. Douglas's point a few weeks ago, it had kind of been a long-standing this is the way we operate, but nothing was memorialized or actually written into our bylaws. You know, the idea specifically behind CIP or school facilities is that our representatives who are there could potentially have an opportunity to vote on something that has a financial impact, and then come back here and also have a second vote around something that has a financial impact. Now, we had a roundabout discussion that there's no guarantee that it actually plays out that way. So, for example, if Ms. Douglas had voting rights on the school facilities and she voted on something as a recommendation to the school board then in turn could actually not use that recommendation or tweak it so that when it comes back to the budget committee, it actually looks different. But we don't know that. There's no way to predict that. I think this just provides clarity around kind of the way we've operated in the past. I know some folks were for this, some folks were against this. I know there was discussions around, you know, the school board and the board of selectmen have two bites at the apple, so to speak. You know, my response was that's not our purview. This is the things we can control. So, additional discussion.
I honestly struggle with this one a little bit, only because, I mean, I was on the school board for years and was on technology committees and curriculum committees and stuff like that, and was always a voting member of those committees. But I also see your point too. I also was on the school board and served as the budget committee rep, and obviously was a voter there, but voted at the will of the board. So I see both sides of it. If people are going to give up their time, they should maybe be able to vote. But at the same time, I mean, they might not vote the will of the board. Like, I obviously don't agree with Carrie on many things, and would I want her voting for the board? Probably not. So
I think that's a good call out, because I think whatever we do here tonight,
Yeah.
I think should be amended. And if it's amended to say committee members shall have voting rights, like the nod is removed, then I think that's the
It's
will
just
of
clear, to your
that's the
point,
will of
yeah.
the board. We want to be clear one way or another. If if you wanna add a statement in there that says, when voting on subcommittees, I don't- however you would phrase it, when voting on subcommittees, the intent is to vote on behalf of, as a representative of the board and not as an individual member. Certainly add that language in there.
I think that'd be even harder though, because how to,
Yeah, there's no way,
How do
to
we- how do you know
there's no
the
way to
board?
govern that.
Yeah.
You don't know what they're voting on.
you don't know, yeah. As a town rep or a school rep, you know the will of the board. But,
Additional discussion. Okay. We will roll call vote this one. So, the motion is to add the language that says committee members shall not have voting rights on subcommittees, et cetera, et cetera. Mr. Olson,
In favor.
Mr. Cutter,
I'll abstain.
Mr. Brunel.
As advised by my board, yes.
I am a yes. Mr. LaPlante,
I'm gonna abstain.
Mr. Barca,
yes.
Mr. Burke.
No.
Motion carries 4-1-2.
So can I bring up another possible change?
Yep, absolutely.
And that's eliminate the wait for the next meeting to vote. There are a lot of things that this committee can vote on that
You know what section that's under?
I don't.
I thought for sure it was the 9:30.
Yeah, right around there.
Or no, 7 a.m. 7 a.m. was a chance tonight.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, not being here.
True.
Voting procedure maybe, section?
Yeah,
6?
section is, page, top of page 7. It doesn't,
Doesn't really say, actually.
does it not clearly say?
I think it's been a practice, but,
No, it was, something was voted on just a few years ago, because they didn't want to vote on something.
So they just kicked the can, they say, they delayed it, basically, they.
Yeah, and I could never understand the process of that, because, I mean, you could always come back and, you know, and vote again if you wanted to, but there were a lot of things that we can easily, we shuffle, especially we don't meet for like a
I think
month.
it's page 4, section 5, B, C. It shall be the policy of the budget committee to require 2 separate meetings to vote on any budget
Budget request. So I think that's different than,
Well,
like this. I mean, I know that's what we did in this
Yeah,
particular
but this
instance,
wasn't a budget request, yeah.
but in essence, we could, we could have voted on it last month based on this.
It also says the policy may be waived by a majority vote of the committee.
Correct. I think that's encompassing the way it is. I think that speaks to if something is presented that is a non-budget request, we can vote on it that meeting. And if something is presented that is a budget request and there's a desire to vote on it that meeting, it could be done so by the majority of the committee. So I
I
think
just
that,
know when we're talking about the bylaws, the last time we said, nope, we have to wait.
yeah, and I assumed that was in the bylaws. I was incorrect.
it's not uncommon when you're making changes like either policy or bylaws to have a first read and then a second
Yeah.
read, and that's where you kind of
Yeah.
vote on it, but it was only one small change.
Any other proposed changes?
Yep, started meetings earlier.
I don't think that's written anywhere.
Doug, you for that?
think I did see it in there somewhere.
Yeah, I just saw it.
I think,
I will add this language
yeah, page 5.
to the
I just saw it.
document. I will add this page to the document and I will send it out to the group. I'll send it to Ms. Kleiner. And then Mr. LaPlante will update it on the portal as well with the new version. All right.
Chairman,
Yes,
forgive me, I forgot to give the budget committee a solar update.
please,
If the budget committee would like a solar update.
please. Maybe.
It is not working still.
You're waiting on Eversource. You're waiting on Eversource, right?
Yeah, so there's always something. I don't know what else to say. There was a code issue between the meter versus what Eversource was expecting the meter number to be, something similar to that. That's been resolved. Eversource is now on the clock for 10 days to get the new meter installed, which is then, once that's installed, then they have X amount of days to get the thing flipped on, so to speak. The concern, putting that aside, right, and the years behind schedule it is, the concern that I have is what was raised last night was regarding the battery energy storage system, what's referred to as the BESS. Referred to it right? Yes.
I've never referred to one as that, but.
But they did.
Okay.
That's what they were. They're indicating that the pad for this will be installed, pad and trench will be installed by the mid-August timeframe, before the kids go back to school. Fine. I don't really care about the pad's important, yes. I want the project done, right, by then, and they're not committing to that. And now the explanation given is, well, because of tariffs and because of everything else, they don't know when they're gonna be able to get the unit and blah, 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 right? So, the board discussion last night was to go back to our legal counsel, and look at what our other options might be. Do we absolutely need the battery energy storage system for this? Is there a way to just remove that, add a savings from the overall contract? Like, we don't know our options.
It won't be neutral if you take it out, you don't have any power at night. So you'd be drawing off Eversource. That's what I think that's what it's for, right?
Yeah,
And we have the heat pumps, right? So, yeah, I mean, there's
you'd be
another.
drawing- Yeah, so.
the batteries are going to be critical to getting value out of the system.
Yeah.
I have a question, however. As it is now, is the system functional without the battery pack? If, say, there's a grid outage, can you power things, or do you need to dump that extra power to the grid for it to work?
It's not even online yet.
So you can't turn it on currently?
Not until this meter's installed.
No, I mean, technically, can you turn it on? Not like, did Eversource let you? Like, will it function?
Yes, the array will function once the meter's installed and it's what we assume, and the flip is switched.
Assume that the power grid doesn't exist. Can you power the school off the solar panel?
Yes.
Physically disconnect it from the grid when you have enough power? It's hard to do without the battery, though. I guess it might be impossible to do without the battery.
Well, I'm sure it's wired in a way that it's in the grid, the feedback, and also the
I'm
store,
sure.
so they'd have to probably rewire the whole thing up the way they did it, I would assume.
And we just don't know, right? And what I don't wanna do is now chase this thing for another year and a half because of tariffs and because now this manufacturer is no longer gonna honor their obligation because they don't wanna have the increased cost because of increased cost to them for paying the tariffs of this equipment. Like, I can just see this spiraling.
Can you simply buy a different battery from someone else?
I don't know. I don't know the options.
Because a year and a
Batteries
half's a long time.
Or can we procure it and store it somewhere so we have it here, you know? It's one of those things too. We don't need to wait until we get the meter and then the switch flipped and, the pad poured and all.
Because if you have batteries, you could at least utilize the power a majority of the time, even if you weren't connected to the grid yet. But without the batteries, very difficult. There are places to buy batteries that already exist and can be installed relatively quickly.
I would agree with your assertion to engage legal in whatever options are available, including, how do we financially recoup dollars, reduce payments, whatever,
Again, and I would remind the budget committee, I think everyone knows this, but I'll say it again publicly, right? The value to the taxpayer is, again, the clock has not started in terms of the gradual payment increases and when that starts, right? So we're still paying the same fixed price
which is less than what we were paying before.
for year zero, and year one does not start until the project is complete, that is including the battery energy storage system is installed, right? So that, we're still in year zero up until that is signed off and complete. And that is when year one starts. All right, and that is important because when year one starts, is the period where we have year 1 through year 6. Up until then, the gradual increases after year 6, and when we would consider the buyout of the array in that balloon payment.
Any questions on solar?
No.
Okay, back to member input, new business. We did bylaws discussion, school facilities. Ms. Douglas is not here this evening. Mr. Cutter, anything to share regarding school facilities, RFP, anything along those lines?
Just that the RFP was approved last night, and hopefully it went out today
Is there a
for Griffin Memorial.
timeline?
ASAP.
Question?
Consultant to come in and give like a recommendation, right?
Right, so based upon the FIC's recommendation to the board for really renovation of Griffin, that was put together in an RFP. That was approved by the board last night. That has now gone out or soon to go out within the next day or a couple days. We'll get some bids back, hopefully, from that, and then we'll go from there.
Questions on school facilities? Capital improvement?
Yeah, we'd met, we didn't have a quorum, so basically all we did is we just interviewed the 3 candidates that came in to be a rep. And as Mr. Brunel said, that one was selected by the select board.
When does that group meet again? Do you know? You don't have to, it's fine. I was just,
A few more weeks.
okay. That's fine. Any other member input, new business this evening? Seeing none, reopen public input. Nope. I almost closed it. State your name and address, please.
Hi, Ronald Blanus, 15 River Circle. I just want to add a little bit to my comments. I want to begin by highlighting, contrary to what many people may think, I am not opposed to education. In my immediate family, I have a wife that taught in this school for 12 years. My son is a teacher, and my daughter-in-law is a teacher. I am not opposed to education. So many times it sounds like that. But my comments are toward needing to provide education that's balanced against the taxpayer's need to have control of the budget. And I really do believe you need to look at things that include challenging whether we are to provide school lunches at taxpayer expense. That was supposed to be self-funding. That was not. I challenged that at the last deliberative session. The woman that is the director of food services came up and said, if we reduced the 100,000 that was in the budget for food services, then I would be taking food out of children's mouths. That's not a true statement, and I was upset that no one from any of the boards challenged that, because we know that there is, for people that cannot afford it, there is a process for reimbursement, is there not? There is. So, things like that need to be challenged. I don't think the board did that. I don't think you did a very good job last year of really challenging budgets. You did it really well with the town, only because of the cap. And like I said before, this year's budget in December, based on what I know, will go up 30 to 40% over last year's December bill. What will happen then is a revolt. And if you don't try to be physically responsible, you'll see a tax cap for the school presented next spring. The only way you can avoid that is show that you are not simply going to allow 6, 7, 8% budget increase over the year. You have to actually look and dig into things. I appreciate some comments that were made, But I will challenge one thing that was said. There are classes that are 7. You look at the sheet that I sent you. The average class, when you look at it, will be well under the target of 21 kids for Campbell High School. The utilization that you sent me tonight has many, many classes, independent of special ed. I did not consider that. I'm not talking about special ed at all. These are regular classes. There are many classes that are in low numbers, single digits, or low teens, with an average of 21 per their policy of an average. How is that possible then, that what I stated doesn't prove that? The difficulty comes is that the curriculum that we have now is based upon a school that should have 500 kids in it. 550 is the design. Right now, we're down to 344, the last stated enrollment projection. But we have not adjusted the curriculum. I appreciate Mr. Barker's comment about AP and honors classes. Those classes are very, very low attendance. My question becomes, are we in a position to have separate honors and AP classes? Should we be looking at combining AP classes with Hudson? That was actually presented at a school board meeting 18 months ago, where Hudson, according to Mr. Jetty, approached Litchfield to consider that. You need to be looking at ways to actually bring up the average class, reduce the cost, and still try to respond to the things that we like to do. But we cannot do everything at what I would consider, I will throw this out because my son teaches at Brewster Academy, a private school that costs $80,000 a year. I've had the conversation with him. Some of the classes that are here are at the levels that they target at private school. We cannot afford a private school model in Litchfield and expect the taxpayers to pay for it. We're at $28 million for our budget, and we have 1,100 kids. So you can do the math. What is it? 26 and a half, $27 million, $1,000, or 28,000, I'm sorry, a year for a student? That's an incredible figure. That is way high, and it's just gone out of sight. And I'm just challenging the budget committee here to begin to think ahead of time, not in a reactive way, but try to set some tone as to what the expectations are. And you need to begin to look into these things in detail, as I've done. If you don't do it, you're not doing your job. I'd be happy to assist in any way I can to research. I've spent probably 600 or 700 hours going through all the documents. And in fact, the one that I showed you out of our master plan that talks about the facilities, which is dated 2002, one of the interesting facts is that the system principal noted that the recommendation for the year 2002 is to add dehumidification and sprinkler systems to GMS. That's 25 years ago, and nothing's been done. It could have been done 25 years ago. It satisfied the majority of the problems at GMS. It was related to the water problems that's there now. And that's the humidification, or humidity in the building condensing. I can show you all the reports that say it is the dehumidification facilities that are amiss. We knew that back 25 years ago. I can show you 3 different reports that say the same thing. We chose not to act. And now I'm sure that we're going to head toward seeking to make a major modification of GMS, at least 25, probably in the $25 million range, which will demolish the old section of the building and add a major addition to GMS. It doesn't need to be. The 2 reports from Monson Insight and Turner said we can do that for far less, in the single millions of dollars. In fact, the amenity can be done for $500,000 according to those reports. All I'm saying is there needs to be some scrutiny, and serious scrutiny, and not just blankly saying, give me a blank check. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Oblinus. All right, seeing no one else here for public input,
Can I say one thing?
I will close public input. Any final board member comment, committee member comments before we adjourn?
I think there are a lot of members on this board that have been on a lot of boards. Mr. Cutter on the budget committee for 9 years, now on fourth year of school. I was 9 years on the school, this is my fourth year now in budget. I know Mr. Brunel's been on a lot of boards. Same thing with Mr. Barker. Mr. Oblinus is not the only member of this town that knows what's going on. And to say that these boards just basically just accept what's there is far from the truth.
Mr. Burke?
I'm actually looking at the enrollments myself now. And you will find some in single digits, but if you look at something like AP Calc BC, there's 4 students enrolled in it. I promise you, there's not a classroom with 4 students in it. It's being taught, co-taught within another class.
I taught classes like that too, yeah. All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Brunel, second by Mr. Cutter. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries 7-0. Our next committee meeting is Thursday, June 26th. Have a good evening, everyone.